Hello again from Gallivanting Gal Travel. If you're like me and you're planning to travel long-term in Europe, be warned. There are severe limitations on your mobility that you must be aware of so you don't end up fined, deported, or forbidden from entering Europe ever again. In this video, I'll answer the following questions. What is the Schengen Region, Agreement, and Visa? Who are the Schengen member countries? Who's required to have a Schengen Visa? What are the rules of the Schengen Agreement? What are the penalties for breaking those rules? Where can you go when you leave the Schengen region? And are there any exceptions or ways around the rules? Let's start at the beginning. What the heck is Schengen? The first time I heard the term Schengen, and the first time I mentioned it to many other people, they thought it was some sort of agreement having to do with China. But actually, the Schengen region is named after Schengen, Luxembourg, where the agreement was originally dreamed up back in 1985. I'll provide plenty of source links in the description if you want all the details, but the important part is that the travel agreement was enacted in 1995 and it consists of travel rules for 26 European countries, 22 of those being EU members and 4 non-members. If you're a citizen of any of these countries, and a few outside the region, you get free movement within the region with very little, if any, checks. That's all I'll say for Schengen citizens, since long-term travel around Europe will not be an issue for them. For those who are not residents of the region, there are some major restrictions. Let's start with the Schengen Visa. This is a visa that visitors from some countries must get in order to visit. Once you obtain the visa, the remaining rules I'll mention will apply to you. The visa is not needed for citizens of the US, Canada, Australia, and many other countries. There's a link below that lists which citizens must get the visa before visiting. If you do not require the visa, you can simply show up to any of the Schengen countries and get your passport stamped on entry and exit. Now for the rules. The main rule for non-Schengen citizens is this. You can only stay in the region for 90 days out of every 180. Let me repeat that. For every 180 days you are traveling, which is about 6 months, only a cumulative 90 days, or about 3 months, can be spent in any of the Schengen countries. For example, you can arrive in the region, stay for 45 days, leave for 60 days, then come back, but you only have 45 days remaining. Then you must leave for the remaining 30 days that are left in that 180-day period before you can come back again. Medical insurance is also something to consider. If you have to apply for the visa, there are some minimum medical requirements you must meet: evacuation and repatriation coverage, and at least 30,000 euros of medical coverage. If you don't have to apply for the visa, then it's going to depend on the country. For example, Lithuania and Slovakia may require you to provide proof of similar coverage upon entrance to the country, but other Schengen countries do not typically ask for any insurance documents upon arrival. The penalties. So you may be thinking to yourself, yeah, okay, Christine, but I've traveled to Europe before and they didn't even look at my passport, let alone stamp it. I'm sure it's not really that strict. And in some cases, you're correct. Southern European countries tend to be a bit more lax. I've heard of folks not having their passports stamped at all in Greece, or of having no issues leaving a month late out of Spain. However, if you're leaving from a Northern European country, the rules are much more strictly enforced. Germany, for example, will likely carefully examine your passport, and you may be detained for staying over for any length of time. If you are caught, overstaying by a few days, or maybe even a week, may just result in a warning. Overstay by longer, and you risk a note in your passport, which will prevent you from re-entering the region. You would then have to apply for a visa in order to ever come back in, if you're allowed in at all. Here are some tips for making sure you are in compliance and don't get into trouble. Make sure your passport is valid for at least 3 months upon your arrival date. 6 months is better, but most European countries only require 3. Also, make sure you have 2 blank pages available for each time you're going to leave and return to the region. Have a return flight booked or access to show your bank account to prove that you have the funds to leave. This is more important in Northern European countries that are more strict. Some countries may not care, but it depends on the country and agent that you get. You can always book a refundable flight and then cancel it after you arrive. You are responsible for making sure your passport is stamped on entry and exit from the Schengen region. Not having the stamps can also get you into trouble, and some countries aren't as strict about stamping your passport, so you may have to ask for it. Some countries now have passport scanners. Just because you didn't get a stamp doesn't mean there's not a record of your entry and exit, so don't think that you can dodge it by avoiding getting stamps. Calculate your days in the region using a date calculator. I've linked to a useful one in the description. This way you'll be sure you don't overstay your welcome. If you do accidentally overstay, leave through a Southern European country, you are less likely to get caught and into trouble. So you've decided you're going to be a law-abiding traveler and leave the region for 90 days. Where do you go that's close so that you can return again? The obvious countries include United Kingdom, Ireland, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Montenegro, and some of the surrounding area. Just remember, each of these countries has its own rules. For example, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Montenegro each have 30-day stay rules without a visa for pretty much the citizens of the same countries as the Schengen region. So in your 90 days outside the region, you'll need to move around. The UK and Ireland are 6 months and 3 months respectively, at least for US citizens, so they're a bit easier to just hunker down in for a bit. Another exception you may not know about is Denmark. Denmark is part of the Schengen region, but their rule is slightly different for citizens of Australia, Canada, Chile, Israel, Japan, Malaysia, New Zealand, Singapore, South Korea, and the United States. You can actually go to Denmark for 90 days regardless of whether you have spent time in other Schengen countries. Note that they do count time spent in other Nordic countries though, so if you were in Finland, Iceland, Norway, or Sweden in the last 180 days, make sure you count those days in your 90 for Denmark. But you could feasibly spend 90 days in Southern and Central Europe, then go to Denmark for 90 more days before leaving the region. I know what you're thinking. This is all great information, Christine, but what if I really want to overstay? Is there any way that I can stay longer? The short answer is yes. Let's take a closer look at your options. Full disclosure, I learned a lot of this information from an article by Nomadic Matt, which I've linked to in the description. But I did find sources for each and some conflicting information that I'll mention, and provide all the sources below in the description. The best option you have is to get a visa for a long-term stay, typically a year, but sometimes more. Most countries do not offer this, but a few do. Depending on your reasons for staying, you can pick the best. Note that once you have a visa from a Schengen country, you can continue to travel around the entire region. You just have to exit and enter the region from the country where you obtained the visa. There are exceptions to this rule, so make sure you understand the rules of your visa. Sweden offers a long-term visitor permit, but you must have an invitation to visit, and that person must also complete paperwork. Sweden allows you to apply before you leave your home country or after you arrive in Sweden, and can actually be obtained faster once you get there. Full requirements are in the link in the description. France offers what's called a long stay visa. This one must be applied for within 3 months before you leave your home country, and you must make an appointment at the French consulate closest to your home. The link below is to the DC French consulate website. It has all the details, but you'll need to find the consulate website for your own area. Italy offers long-term visas, but when I visited their site, it looks like you must have family in the country to visit. The link is in the description though if you'd like to check it out. They have a nifty little form that you can fill out, and it will take you directly to the correct information based on your situation. All 3 of these countries require proof of income to support yourself, and typically you cannot work while you're there, as they're tourist or visitor visas, and they don't want people coming in just to look for jobs. If you are planning to work, Germany and Czech Republic might be a better option. They offer a self-employed or freelancer visa, so if you're a digital nomad, one of these may be your best option. Note, you will have to pay income taxes to the country where you get your visa if you're approved. I've seen many websites indicating Germany offers a 3-month temporary visa while you wait for their decision on your long-term visa. So you may want to apply toward the end of your 90 days in the Schengen region, even if you don't think you're going to get it, because you can then stay in the region for an additional 90 days before needing to leave. Note that I could not find an official German government website stating this, so you'll want to check this out when you arrive. So there you have it. Enjoy traveling around Europe without having to worry about overstaying your welcome. Remember to search online for country entry and exit requirements for any country that you'll be visiting so that you can be sure you're following all of their rules, as they can vary slightly. Thanks for watching. Please like the video, comment with your questions and feedback, your personal experiences, and subscribe for more helpful travel information from Gallivanting Gal Travel. Stay tuned.